Hello everyone, I'm Melanie and welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing something a little different. I will not be specifically talking about books directly, but I will be talking about the writing styles, narrative structures, and things about books that I really love. And then I'll give you references to books that I feel have those in them. So we'll be doing recommendations that way today. As a kind of exercise for myself, I'd like to look back at what types of books, what themes that I like to read across books that I enjoy, and then, find authors or genres that reflect that. So this is an exercise for me as much as it is a recommendation video for you. So with that, let's get started. The first element I love in books is a playful writing style. So that means when writers are kind of playing along with their characters, though they are in a lot of serious situations, they're not always talked about in serious ways, or they make fun of their own characters just by how they write it. I like kind of lighthearted writing and playful, and you can just tell that the writers had fun writing it, so I had fun reading it because of that. And I like writing that's very straightforward as well. So for example, books like The Grace of Kings, I think Ken Liu does a great job at writing intense scenes. There's a lot going on. It's a big, long battle process, war basically, but the way he talks about his characters and the things they do is just very fun, and I had a really fun time reading a book about war. So that's one example. Next we have my favorite book, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. I've already mentioned Susanna Clarke does this, but it's especially prevalent in this book because there's a lot of characters and there's a lot of time to dive into these characters. So she definitely takes time to poke fun at them, and I love that. Another book that I don't think I've talked about on this channel yet is My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Ottessa Moshfegh. This is the first book I've ever read by her, and so I thought I wouldn't actually like this book, honestly. Kaylin bought this for me. I wasn't sure I would like it because the thought of reading about a girl who's trying to medicate herself to sleep for an entire year just doesn't relate to me, honestly. So I wasn't expecting to like this, but the reason I did like this so much was because the writing made fun of her and all the odd things she did, even though it was written in first person. So it was just a very fun read, an interesting read, and I ended up really enjoying it. Another element I love in books is not knowing at all what is going on in the beginning of the book. I love to kind of be very confused and have to take my time to figure out what is going on. Examples of this can be Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. You have absolutely no idea what's going on for, I would say, most of this book, and I loved every second of it. And whether or not the ending is satisfying for people or not, it's still a very fun journey. So I really enjoyed that aspect, though I did enjoy the ending of this, obviously. It's my number 3 favorite book of all time, so that's one. Another one that does this is The Library at Mount Char by Scott Hawkins. This one is very confusing because there's a lot of different things going on. You're taken to a lot of different people in the beginning and you don't really know anything, and they don't connect at all. So this one's a very fun one to read as well, and very confusing in the beginning. And then lastly, probably the most confusing book I've read is The Bone Orchard by Sarah A. Mueller. This one is very confusing throughout, and they kind of drop bombs on you, middle to end. Then you're just like, what? You're like, oh, that's what that means? And as you kind of slowly piece together, it's just kind of, your mind gets it's really fun to just slowly piece things together and fully understand what's going on, because this world is a very unique one. And it's very hard to understand what's going on. At least it was for me, maybe not for some people, but this is a very weird book that I don't think I've talked about on this channel yet either. But yeah, super confusing and supposed to be in the beginning. Another element of plot and writing is amazing battle strategy. I am such a sucker for good strategy. I'm a strategy person at heart. I work in operations, so I love putting together intricate puzzles and problem solving and seeing how these authors decide what ends up happening and how it happens. That's really fun for me. That includes Red Rising by Pierce Brown. I've talked about this before, but very, very interesting style of strategy, especially in the first one. I was very surprised, and that's why I fell in love with this book a lot. I love how crazy and odd people can come up with solutions to the issues that their characters face in the book. So it's very fun for me. Also, The Grace of Kings does this very well as well. The next this is more of a genre than a writing style, I would say, I like is period pieces or Regency era books. So think of 1800s England or Europe and all of the fae in that era, which are usually evil, and I love that aspect to it. They're very proper and evil and just do awful things. In comparison to the magical fairy that people think about in a positive way. So books like this include Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. This one was a very delightful read. I had a great time reading it, and it has all of the Regency romance you could want, as well as the evil fae aspect. Another one is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. This one is not necessarily set in England, but she is from England herself, the main character, Emily Wilde, and she goes to a kind of Icelandic adjacent island to discover more fae, and a lot of the fae she comes across are either evil or friendly, but she never knows how they're going to react to her. So it's a very interesting ride, and I love learning about the fairy in Heather Fawcett's mind. Another thing I love in books or in writing styles is the use of second person or unique narrative structures. Second person is utilizing you as your main subject, though the author is usually referencing a specific character, not you actually as the reader. So it's very interesting to kind of put yourself in that character's shoes by using that writing style. And then by unique narrative structures, I mean kind of things that aren't chronological, they don't really make sense in the order, or things are just thrown at you randomly. I think the biggest example for this one would be Devil House by John Darnielle. I just finished this one. This one throws random things at you. It's set in parts, and each part is very different and unique, but it's all technically part of the same story. But there was one story in here that was written in Old English and had absolutely nothing to do with the plot, but I just thought it was very fun and interesting, and I figured out how to read Old English as best as I could. So I just think that's really fun when like authors kind of just throw in something really random in there just because to them it probably makes sense, but to the reader I don't know if it does. So that was really fun with this book. Survivor by Chuck Palahniuk, that's also one that does an interesting narrative style. I also meant to say with Devil House, he does use you or second person in a couple of the parts, so that was a very interesting change as well. Survivor kind of throws you all over the place in this guy's life, so you never know what you're gonna get, and the writing style is very unique, I would say, as well, because it took me just a while to get used to it, get used to reading it, so that was fun. And then also Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin uses second person in one of the POVs as well, and it's used in a very clever way, and I really appreciated it, and it kind of goes throughout the whole trilogy, and once you get to the end, it's just, you know, very, very well done, I would say. I've never read something like this that kind of culminated in the way it did, so this one's also a good one. And I did mention earlier Library of Mount Char does that as well. It kind of switches around to following different people that don't connect at all, and it's a bit confusing, and I love that structure, so yeah. Lastly, I am a big fan of the vignette style of writing, meaning telling a full story in kind of small, shorter stories in a way. Each chapter or each part can feel like its own complete thing sometimes. or you're telling someone's story through the beginning and end of one chapter. For example, in Grace of Kings, we sometimes get the full story of a character in one chapter because we go through a lot of characters in this. So you're getting stories within stories of the whole story. So I love that kind of telling. Also, another one that I love is The Things They Carried. It's told in that way. They all connect around the Vietnam War in his experiences and people he knows, but they're all not necessarily part of the same story. So it's hard to explain. I don't know if I'm doing it well. And like I said, Double House is also told in parts, basically short stories, or some of them interconnect each other when it's the same name of the part, but the stories don't really connect with each other throughout the book. So that was what made it kind of more interesting to read. And so that wraps up the things that I love about books. And I hope you enjoyed it. I know it's a bit different, but I wanted to express my opinions and what actually I love about reading and how I choose books and how I kind of rate my books when they have these elements. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you like more content like this, I can do a video about what I don't like about books. I'm happy to do that. I love talking shit about things. So let me know if that is of interest to you, and thank you for watching and have a great day. Bye.